Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 284, The Sequence of the Sealing of These Set Apart Ones, Part 2. The podcast objectives are analyze the third main event of the sealing, reveal how we are at the end, analyze the great divide within the nation, reveal what it means to be taken out of the midst, analyze the coming of the lawless one, and analyze the strong delusion many are under. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. The Great Falling Away. Now, in the most recent podcast, we analyzed 2 of the 7 primary events associated with the sealing of these set apart ones, namely the first 2. To wit, we analyzed the call to walk in the way of holiness and the turning away from lawlessness. And we came to the following conclusion. The 2 leading events within the sealing of these set apart ones have already transpired. Vis-a-vis, the renewed nation of Israel is walking in the way of holiness and turning away from lawlessness. This reality is the backdrop for the third major event in this season of sealing. Enter the great falling away. Now, we introduced the great falling away in a recent podcast dedicated to analyzing the times and seasons of the sealing of these set apart ones. In that podcast, we revealed that the great falling away is the primary indicator that we are indeed living in the season of sealing. To wit, of all the signs we have seen in these last days, the great falling away is the most indicative of the times and seasons we are living in. For that reason, we must consider the scriptural passage of this pivotal event and conduct a thorough analysis from there. 2 Thessalonians 2, 1 through 12 reads, as to the coming of our Master Yahushua Messiah and our gathering together to him, we ask you, brothers, not to become easily unsettled in mind or troubled, either by spirit or by word or by letter, as from us, as if the day of the Messiah has come. Let no one deceive you in any way, because the falling away is to come first, and the man of lawlessness is to be revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called Elohim or that is worshiped, so that he sits as Elohim in the dwelling place of Elohim, showing himself that he is Elohim. Do you not remember that I told you this while I was still with you? And now you know what restrains for him to be revealed in his time. And then the lawless one shall be revealed, whom the master shall consume with the spirit of his mouth and bring to naught with the manifestation of his coming. the coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, and in every deception of unrighteousness in those perishing, because they did not receive the love of the truth in order for them to be saved. And for this reason, Elohim sends them a working of strong delusion for them to believe in the lie, in order that all should be judged who did not believe the truth, but have delighted in the unrighteousness. We are at the end. Now, there is clearly a great deal of truth in this passage. And although I would love to cover every verse, I will limit my analyses to the lines that are directly associated with the sealing of these set apart ones. We'll begin with verse 1 and work our way to the end. In the beginning, Shaul lays the foundation for the entire discourse. That is, the coming of our Master Yahushua Messiah and our gathering together unto him. As you can see by the timeline below, the coming of our Master Yahushua Messiah occurs in the 7th season in these last days, vis-a-vis the Battle of Armageddon. Ergo, the first thing Shaul shares with his audience, past and present, is that the day of Yahushua Messiah has not yet come. This is why he tells them in verse 2 not to be soon shaken in mind or troubled, for that day, although at hand, had not yet come. Now, here's a question. Why does Shaul have to provide this clarity to his audience? The answer, because they knew the day of Yahushua Messiah marked the end of this age. Therefore, if that day had come and the world continued as it had always, it would have destroyed the faith of the set apart ones. This is why Shaul, on multiple occasions and in multiple letters, rehearses the end of this age to his audience. Else, their faith would have been destroyed and they would have returned to their former stations of lawlessness. And that was almost 2,000 years ago. That being said, the urgency of Shaul's message is even greater in this day. For we have not only drawn nigh unto the end, my dear friends, we are at the end. The day of Yahushua Messiah is near. The Great Divide. Now, after making this assertion, Shaul warns his audience not to be deceived concerning these end times matters for a crucial reason, which I will offer as an inflection point, for it confirms the timing of the great falling away. The great falling away will precede the day of Yahushua Messiah. Per the timeline below, Shaul is confirming that the great falling away precedes the Battle of Armageddon, which occurs in season 7. Again, observing the timeline below and knowing what we already know, the only season the great falling away could occur in is the sealing of these set apart ones. Explicitly and naturally, it must occur after the renewed nation turns away from lawlessness and before the renewed covenant is established. Here is why. The renewed covenant must be established with a set apart people, and these people cannot be set apart if they are physically and or spiritually connected with those within the extended nation who will not be chosen. Likewise, Our turning away from lawlessness will expose all the false believers in our midst. This exposition is the precursor and the initiator of the great falling away, which is accompanied by a physical and spiritual separation between those who are chosen and those who are merely called. My dear friends, this may be the most powerful, crucial, and prominent revelation I have revealed in this entire end time series. If for no other reason, it is because we are living this word of prophecy in this very hour. Now, allow me to restate the revelation. To wit, as the Spirit led the chosen elect in our departure from lawlessness, many within the extended nation of Israel refused to follow. And as they continued in their rebellion against the commands of the Most High Elohim, their spiritual falling away led to a physical separation. Explicitly, a physical separation that has divided assemblies, families, and friends. On this wise, we perceive the great falling away is also the great divide, a culmination of a warning Yahushua Messiah gave us many years past. Matthew 10, 34 through 38 reads, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to bring division, a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies are those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take up his stake and follow after me is not worthy of me." Taken out of the midst. Now, I can attest to the veracity of the Great Divide because I've seen it, I've lived it, and I'm quite sure many of you have as well. And seeing as we have progressed beyond this point in the season of sealing, you've moved on, and so have I. Trust me, it's the only progressive path you can take, for this is the only path where someone survives. Alas, every other path ends and everyone dies. Here is why. All those who have become casualties to the great falling away are thoroughly infected with the residual defects of lawlessness. My dear friends, we are talking about spiritual diseases that not only spread rapidly, they have a 100% spiritual mortality rate once they reach a certain level of infection. This is why I have constantly preached that there is a point of no return for those who pursue lawlessness. Vis-a-vis, there is a point in their downward spiral where they are living, and yet they cannot avoid death. Now look, here lies the inflection. Vis-a-vis, if you try to maintain any kind of relationship with these individuals, you are not only increasing your risk of contracting their spiritual diseases, but you are also showing Yahuwah that you are not a true contender for everlasting life. If you need me to explain this in greater detail, please shoot me an email or post a comment on our website, for this is a grave matter that should not be taken lightly. And seeing as I've already lived it, I can help you find your way to a brighter day. Now, returning back to Shaul's letter, on the great falling away. We are told that the man of lawlessness will be revealed after the great falling away in verse 3. Then, for the next 3 verses, Shaul describes the man of lawlessness. Now, after this, Shaul makes another point of interest. Vis-a-vis, he tells us that someone is restraining, i.e., preventing the lawless one from being revealed in his time, which we perceive is sometime between the sealing of these set apart ones and the day of Yahushua Messiah, i.e., season 2 and season 7. He goes on to say, the mystery of lawlessness is already at work, and this counter operation of lawlessness will remain a mystery until he who is restraining comes out of the midst. Here's a question. Who is Shaul referring to in this verse? I.e., who is restraining the man of lawlessness? The answer, the spirit of Elohim. He is restraining the man of lawlessness from being revealed in his time. Not only this, but when he, i.e., the set apart spirit, comes out of the midst, the mystery of lawlessness will also be revealed. Now, here's the next question. What is Shaul referring to when he declares, there will be a time when he who now restrains comes out of the midst? The answer to this question is another revelation, and another one you will want to bookmark. Now, here is the revelation. To be taken out of the midst in this passage reveals the following. Those who are being led by the spirit of Elohim, i.e., the set apart ones, will be removed from the general public. For the scriptural context of midst is interpreted as among the public. This departure from the eye of the general public will be initiated during the second great Exodus, i.e., the 7th major event in this season of sealing, as you can see by the timeline below. And as Shaul is revealing, this departure will open the door for the mystery and the man of lawlessness to wreak havoc on our world. For the spirit of Elohim and all the set apart ones will be taken out of the way in secure locations, waiting for the coming day of Yahushua Messiah. Now, the textual accountings of this event represent 2 of my favorite scripture passages. And yet, many will read these passages and have no idea that they are referring to the here and now and the timing of the second great Exodus. Notwithstanding, I pray that your eyes are opened and that you can see. When Isaiah prophesies concerning these matters, he is prophesying about you and about me. Isaiah 57, 1-2 reads, the righteous one has perished, and no one takes it to heart. And committed men are taken away, while no one understands that the righteous one is taken away from the presence of evil. He enters into peace. They who walk in integrity rest on their beds. Isaiah 26, 20-21 reads, go, my people, enter your rooms and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourself, as it were, for a little while until the displeasure is past. For look, Yahuwah is coming out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their crookedness, and the earth shall disclose her blood and no longer cover her killed ones. The coming of the lawless one. Now, we'll discuss the process by which we are taken out of the midst in the upcoming podcast as we analyze the second great Exodus. And we'll discuss our Exodus at a more intimate level when that time comes. And we are making our way to the safe spaces Yahuwah has prepared for us. From now, we must continue with our analysis of the great falling away by considering the following interest point. Verses 9 through 12 reveal that the coming of the lawless one is orchestrated by Satan himself, and that everyone doing lawlessness will be deceived into following the lawless one. In addition to the lying wonders of Satan, Yahuwah Elohim himself will send them a strong delusion that will cause them to believe in the lie. For it is written, these lawless ones did not receive a love of the truth. Ergo, they did not believe the truth because they took pleasure in unrighteousness. Now, here's a question. What does it mean to take pleasure in unrighteousness? The answer, in some cases, it means exactly what it says. Many within the extended nation are committing illicit acts of sin. They, like the former nation who died in the wilderness, are filled with lust, and they're committing sins against their own bodies. In other cases, many are taking pleasure in their refusal to guard the commands of Elohim, or they are benefiting from someone who is. In each and every case, these lawbreakers are finding pleasure in lawlessness, or they approve of those who do. The second part of this equation is key to remember, and we will come back to it in a future podcast. For there are many who are benefiting from the sins of others, and these too shall be judged. For when we fail to call out the sin in our midst, we by default are giving our consent to that sin. This is clear evidence that these individuals, like the one who is actually committing the sin, do not love the truth. For when you love the truth, you will stand up for the truth. You will speak truth to power, to authority, to family, and to friends. And if they don't receive you, do as Yahushua Messiah commanded us. Shake the dust from your feet. For it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for these lawless ones. They are under a delusion. Now, I consciously refer to these transgressors as lawless ones because they operate in the same spiritual model as their father, that is, the lawless one, who Shaul declares shall be revealed in his time. No doubt, we have much to say about this villain, but I am reserving it for a future podcast, which I surmise we will touch on as we draw near to the sifting of the nations. For all signs point to him being revealed to the world during this season. For now, we must conclude our analyses of the great falling away with a final key point of interest. It is one of the many reasons the great falling away is illustrated by a great divide, and why the Spirit has led us to cut off many of our physical ties. Here is why. Many within the extended nation of Israel are under a strong delusion, and not just any delusion. They are under a working delusion sent by Elohim. It is such a powerful delusion that these lawless ones are living and believing in a lie. Now, look, here lies the inflection, the problem, and the great danger. Vis-a-vis, these individuals are yet within the extended nation and claiming to be children of the Most High. This is how we know they are under a strong delusion, for these lawbreakers are utterly delusional. Not only this, but if you listen to their messages, they are not only teaching an outdated, convoluted version of the restoration message, alas, they have migrated toward the extreme poles of insanity, and they are teaching doctrines of devils and many insane matters, none of which they were teaching years ago. This is why I label their descent as a downward spiral, for these defectors are spiraling out of control, and all for one reason. They did not receive a love for the truth, and thus they can never be saved. For to be saved, one must first be free. For this cause, I warn you, stay away from the delusional advocates of lawlessness. They will do you no good. Alas, they are beyond salvation. They have reached their point of no return, and there is nothing you can do. And yet, we should give thanks to Elohim, for although we are living out our soul salvation in these last days, we were chosen to be saved from the beginning. And this is why I am warning you with such terrific passion, because many have missed the mark and resigned. And so remember this word of truth and ensure your destiny is aligned with your design. 2 Thessalonians 2:13-14 reads, "But we ought to give thanks to Elohim always for you, brothers, beloved by the Master, because Elohim from the beginning chose you to be saved, and sanctification of spirit and belief in the truth, unto which he called you by our good news, for the obtaining of the esteem of our Master, Yahushua Messiah." Now, here is the final word. Our nation endured a great divide, and we were forced to pick a side. On the one hand, you had the majority within the extended nation of Israel come face to face with a piercing reality. Namely, our people had not only inherited lies, but we had also contracted many spiritual diseases as a result of our dispersion and our subjection to false religions and deities. And while they embraced the truth of the restoration message, they only embraced it in part. As we have clearly proven, they were enamored with the content to the point where they are still teaching it, even though we have progressed into a new season and Yahuwah has given his messengers a renewed message. Notwithstanding, they did not receive a love for the truth that required them to guard all the commands of Elohim and the spirit of obedient faith. This is the part they rejected. This is the part they left out. And this is why Yahuwah has rejected them. This is why he has left them out of the renewed nation of Israel. And as you will see in the next podcast, he has made no covenant with them. Now, as for the rest of us, the minority within the extended nation, the proverbial faithful few, we did not stop at the content of the restoration message. Quite the contrary. Unlike our false brothers and sisters, we received a love for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And so we took the next step and we began fulfilling the intent of the restoration message. And now we are being sealed and we are being prepared for a great evil that is coming. And I'll say it again, it is coming. Heretofore, I admonish you to stay strong in Yahuwah Elohim and the power of his might. And don't give a second thought to what unfaithful men and women may say. For while they have fallen out of the nation due to their pursuit of lawlessness, we were chosen before the foundations of the world, and we are here to stay. Now, here is what's next. We can play today's podcast, End Times 286, the sequence of the sealing of these set apart ones, part 2. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 288, the sequence of the sealing of these set apart ones, part 3. I will post this podcast on Monday, June 10th, 2024. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.